Hello, my name is Gia Lopez, and this is my video for my final iteration of my RPG level. So for my level, I decided to use Wildermyth as my editor of choice. So while I play through these, I'm just gonna go ahead and start answering some of the questions. As you can see, the narrative of my level is told via comic strips at the beginning and the ends of each battle. So, is the level well laid out with a sensible use of available space, and does it facilitate engaging gameplay for the game? Does it have appropriate level of complexity? Is it too complex or too simple? So because of the way that the Wildermyth is, there is no one level. Instead, a level is comprised of many different battles connected through storytelling by the use of comics. However, I decided to view each battle like a small level, which would make up the whole campaign. For each battle, I experimented with different shapes and layouts to make sure that each one felt unique while also being uniform enough that it created a cohesive design. I made sure that each level had enough room for players to move around and deploy different strategies when doing the battles. Since Wildermyth has 3 different character classes, I made sure to design my levels in a way that it would work for each one, providing enough space for the hunter to stay back and shoot from a distance, making sure that enemies weren't too far for the warrior that would never be able to get into the melee range, and providing enough environmental scenery for the mystic to utilize. These were all very important aspects of the game I needed to keep in mind. I was able to do this by experimenting with the level shape and size and changing the amount of debris that could be found around the battle. Does my level have good flow and pacing? The way Wildermyth tackles pacing and flow is with the use of the overworld map. Throughout this, the player can scout a new location, providing exposition and important information regarding the narrative. Then a battle ensues, and finally the player can secure the site, which provides them with other useful resources. However, I was unable to use this strategy to create good flow and pacing for my level due to the multiple editor issues I encountered while attempting to connect my battles and comics to each other, which would have created the overworld map. Therefore, I attempted to fix this by creating comics before and after each battle. This meant I was able to keep some of the overarching story without having to need the actual overworld map. Before a fight started, I would provide the player with why they were there and how it affected the overarching story. Then I would have them battle the enemies, and after that provide more information about where the party should go next and why. Does it have a cohesive narrative with a good use of environmental storytelling? Does it contain at least 2 additional narratives told via vignettes and/or environmental storytelling? My level follows one main narrative, this being that there has been a recent shift in the balance of the forest, causing the animals and nearby creatures to turn into monsters named Gorgons. My story follows a group of 3 friends, farmers, who began their journey because their home was attacked by the Gorgons. They then set out to figure out what happened and protect as many people as possible. Throughout their journey, they meet different characters, like a young mystic living in the middle of the forest. They have a very strong connection to the nature, and they join the 3 heroes on their quest. They also meet many villagers, a baker, an old woman who serves to explain more about what is happening with the strange cult that has captured the leaf spirit, which is what's caused the recent imbalance. They are planning on sacrificing it to awaken an old god. The heroes must then face off with the cult and save the spirit and their home. This story is told throughout my level with the use of comics. In these comics, I can decide which characters are present, their location, and the environment where the story takes place. This allows me to immerse the player in the story and by playing around with the background, emotions, the characters are feeling throughout the story. Each battle also has its own setting so that I can customize to show the area the characters find themselves in throughout the story. This means the story is cohesive throughout both the comics and battles. I was also able to add 2 more additional narratives to my story. One was done through the use of vignettes in the Infested Forest chapter of my level. Here the characters find themselves in a dark cave, in a dark middle of the forest, Here the characters find themselves in the middle of the woods and extremely dark, and they can hear all the Gorons all around them ready to attack at any moment. This setup is done through the use of comics before the battle ensues. In the battle itself, the player will see the 2 woodland creatures that have been turned into stone, and many Gorgon tentacles appear around the stone creatures. Once a character steps into range, another comic will start playing. Here the character will explain how there must have been a battle and the creatures lost. To connect this back to the main narrative, I make it so that the Gorgon, presumably the one that attacked the creatures, ambushes the party. Finally, the second additional narrative I was able to add is shown directly through the use of comics. The characters continue their adventure when one of them claims how hungry they are, but the group is running low on rations. When suddenly another party member exclaims that they have stepped on a piece of bread and then they notice there's a trail of bread leading somewhere. This prompts the characters to follow the trail to a small village where the baker is being attacked by Gorgons. This attack makes it so that it can tie in the second narrative back to the main plot points. It doesn't feel too out of place. The player is then forced to start out the battle with the baker as their ally for that battle only. Does the level facilitate interesting playing choices with suitable challenges and rewards? So in my original design, I had 2 main areas where I wanted to provide the player with a choice. Choices in Wildermyth usually occur in the arrival event before the battle commences. The choices then either provide the party with a buff or debuff depending on the player's choice. Originally, I wanted to give the player choices before each battle. However, as I mentioned before, the issues I encountered with the editor made it so that I could not add an arrival event to my level. I attempted different ways to implement them into my level, but it proved too difficult for the scope of this project, and I was unable to add choices. Another issue that made this even harder to do was the fact that player progress is not saved from one battle to the next. Therefore, anything the choice provided would have never been able to be used by the player. This was the same when it came to rewards. After each battle, Wildermyth randomly generates a reward item based on the difficulty of the event. In my level, this still happens, so the player can see the item they are being rewarded with, and they can give it to a specific character. However, this is rendered useless as they won't be able to use it for the following battles. So does the level follow our other guidelines for RPG design seen on week 11 through 13? So due to the way that Wildermyth is played, there was a lot of RPG guidelines we went through that were surprisingly very hard to follow. Wildermyth does not allow for open world guidelines as it isn't an open world RPG. It doesn't allow for the creation of puzzles or mazes. Creating some is possible, but it would be breaking the core mechanics of the standard Wildermyth level. This being said, I was still able to follow some of the guidelines we went over. I already mentioned how I went about fixing my flow and pacing by adding breaks in between each battle and providing exposition so the player would not feel bored. I also mentioned the issues encountered of creating player choices, which is something I wish I could have added. I also mentioned how I plan to have an overworld where the player would complete most of the level through, with the battles then counting as dungeons. I was unable to complete this, however I did follow adventure design guidelines by providing random NPCs to help advance the story and provide a fun break from the seriousness of the main quest line. My narrative was fairly linear as my level was told through comics. This meant no soft locking could occur while the player played the level. Finally, I was able to make sure that rewards were suitable by having random items generated based on the difficulty of the encounter. The one issue with this is that the player would not be able to use them. So that is my full video for my final level. Thank you for watching.